Lagos, just today when I've been in Lagos, I had to intervene. And I learned what I think is about choices. The Lagos State government centers are still not fully occupied, but the federal hospitals said I spoke with the FMC, Butemet, and with Ilut, they have a full holding capacity now. But I was told the infectious disease hospital, the IDH of the government, and they've opened up a new center. It's still not filled up. So as such, we do have that. But outside Lagos, in all the states, like part of what I said, every federal institutions have now at least a minimum of 30-bed isolation centers. But in addition, several states created centers. Most of them were even closing down towards the end of last year. So in the past, we didn't have this. There was like a rush to be able to establish that. But more importantly, it's also there's better understanding of the treatment. And the main thing is those that have severe cases require oxygen. The oxygen production capacity in the country has increased, and the ventilator numbers and so on has increased as well.
You know, Nigeria is faced with that challenge of providing oxygen for patients. Yes, you have talked about beds, but that's just one side, because you can't just sleep at the isolation centers. A lot of patients need intensive care, which you reference. Now, there are reports that patients are not being treated equally. They say that some patients, influential patients, get preferential treatment when it comes to this oxygen supply. Has that been brought to your notice?
I'm sorry, that has not been brought to my notice. Specifically, I think 2 weekends ago, I paid an unscheduled visit to Gwagwalada Center in Abuja. I drove myself, actually. They wouldn't know, and I dressed casually. And I had I look at the place. Yes, they have full house, full capacity, but the same debriefed me like there. They had an arrangement to have supply of 100 cylinders per day. And he said they are getting this on a regular basis. They don't have, I went and I look at it. They don't have any shortage. Of course, they are even building an addition, just like I said, as part of the new expansion in Gwagwalada. So that's in Abuja. But I don't have an umbrella view of what is happening across the country. But the report of this shortage is not, I'm not aware of. But I'm aware that the PTF continuously expand the provision of oxygen across the country. They've even called the military, the Air Force are providing support to be able to transport oxygen from their plant in Yola to all parts of the country. The PTF, if this report comes from anywhere, I have interactions with the national coordinator, and I'm aware they have resources to be able to intervene anywhere there's shortage for them to provide oxygen. The president directed that there should be at least an oxygen plant establishment, one per state, and this is ongoing as well.
You know, this is not just about shortage. This is about preferential treatment.
I wouldn't think that. So, I'm a medical doctor. Yeah. I don't think any health worker, because the oath I'm a medical doctor myself, the oath you take as a physician is to treat all human beings equally. Every patient is a patient, is a client. There's no status, and there shouldn't be that. I'll be very surprised to have this, and definitely, if we actually find out about this, there are sanctions and there are consequences for any health worker that engage in such.
So, would you be willing to investigate this?
Oh, definitely. If there are specific reports, I'm saying it publicly now, let that report come to us. We will definitely investigate, and then we will appropriately ensure appropriate actions and sanctions are implemented.
Because, yes, you have the oath you have taken as a medical doctor, but if there's anything we have seen, once you have the money, when it comes to healthcare sometimes, you get better access to better healthcare compared to people who don't have the money. A lot of people still have to pay for healthcare. So regarding this one, I'm glad you said you will investigate, because this is a report that has come time and time again. So pending the outcome of that investigation, which will of course keep tabs with you, we had the chairman of the House Committee on Education a few days ago. He was talking about, on basic education rather, he was speaking about the resumption of schools, and he vehemently spoke against it. I believe you have seen that letter, that statement he put out. What is your position on this? Because this is the third day of schools resumption.
I think my position, I'm also a member of Basic Education in the Senate, not the leadership of the committee, but I'm an active member of the committee. From the epidemiological perspective, schools should open with the caution that protocol should be maintained. That would be my position. Because we have to look, just like the chairman of PTF has already been saying, the pandemic has effect on our health, but it does have on our wealth. But not only of our health now, on our wealth now, we should prevent its effect on our future. Because we've lost, so to say, a whole calendar year of school. And the epidemiology did not reflect that we have high incidence among youths or among children. Two, of course, they could be asymptomatic and transmit. But so what we need to do, to me, would be to manage to live with the disease and see how we maintain the protocol. But to say you close school, we are causing more problems. So we look at it from the perspective of normally what we call cost-benefit perspective. From cost-benefit perspective, the benefit of opening the school under the cautions of the fact that we maintain the protocol far outweighs our closing the school. Because whereas when we close schools, it doesn't mean these children don't still go about, don't mix. Their parents probably go to markets, they go to churches, they go to all this. We are not on lockdown again. So, but we are in a kind of maintaining what we call social distancing and for people to maintain all other protocols. So that's why, with due respect, I'm not in support of what the chairman has said, and the PTF did not also in support of that. And they base it on data. They base their decision to say schools should reopen on the basis of data and on the basis of what I've said now about cost-benefit analysis.
Well, you know the Nigerian Medical Association is also warning of a spike as a result of this. So factoring this into your opinion and, of course, subsequently the decision of the PTF, do you think it's not enough to consider this? Aren't you expecting a spike as a result of this?
Well, but I think it is still a project. I would say it's a conjecture rather than a projection when you talk about spikes. Because we currently have spikes without the school, don't we? If we open school with the necessary precautions, which include the hand washing, the wearing of masks, the social distancing in terms of how the children are, and the identification, early recognition or early detection of anybody with symptoms, because definitely temperature will be taken, and anybody with the essential thing is for us all to follow and observe the non-pharmaceutical intervention protocols. Because outside the school, are we following this to the letter? With due respect, the answer is no. And I think that's the most important. That's where the media, that's where everybody comes in to ensure this is done. As you said, you saw me using masks. You still go about, when you go about cities and towns in Nigeria, many people still, they don't wear the simple protocol of wearing masks. People still crowd about. So all this happens outside the school. So in the school, it is because it's a regimented environment. I'm sure we can maintain this better. So the spike may not necessarily be from the school. The spike will also could have come from what is happening to society. And as I said, my view is to look at the cost benefit. It's not that it is absolutely without risk, but the risk compared to the other risk of not opening to the country, not for now, but for the future. And that is important. While you are trying to probably say you save life, you also lose more from the consequence of lack of education, because we are likely to wipe out a generation in terms of the loss that may come from not opening up the schools.
We just recently saw some tertiary institutions cancelling the particular session, but still about the schools. So we have schools in the urban areas, private schools, where we can always see, but then there are schools in the rural areas, the hinterlands, places that are far to reach. So can you certainly say that those protocols are ensured in those schools?
Well, when you said, I think it will depend on, schools is on concurrent list. The ownership of schools in terms of the state, federal government, and what we call the private. So the observance will be dependent on the ownership and leadership and managers of the schools across the country. So in the rural area that you are talking about, from what I saw of the data that Peter had presented, because the data shows where are the cases coming from. There are less number of cases coming from such area. That's one. In which case, if there are much interaction or much people going out and coming in, we can still maintain it like that. It means, two, there are less number of, the population is lower in the rural area, in which case it is easier for the classes to maintain social distancing. So,
Well, welcome back. Senator Ibrahim Oloriegbe, the Chairman, Senate Committee on Health, is still with us on the program tonight. And We were talking about the NIN enrollment. You think that it should stop the way it is currently being run. So what should be done?
Definitely. I think, like what I saw, what ought to be done is, one, we need to create the enabling environment that will be COVID-19 compliant. As we are trying to solve a problem, we are creating more problems. The NIN registration is about, part of effort to solve our security problems, because the essence of the registration and linking it with the SIM card is to ensure that the use of communication medium, let me just put it like that, to commit crime is reduced or eliminated, because they want every card to be traceable and so on. But when we do that, we create health problems which can lead to death. So, in my view, one, it should be stopped, and then more resources should be allocated to the agencies to have much more enabling environment, which will be you create centers, it is better organized. People are probably because the way things should be done, it should be in such a way that you should know your holding capacity and your what I would call the operating capacity. If you have a center, how many people can I attend to in a day? And then you announce that. So it could probably be you come, pick it, you are given, you can use this current mobile to be able to say, okay, book, and then you have a time to come. So the center will now be more compliant with COVID-19. This is what I want to say. So what I'm saying, that's why I said it's not the way I didn't say stop it, because it has its effect, it has its reasons. But then we need to work out a system that will be COVID-19 compliant. It's not only about COVID-19 again, it's also about some other things, because with what you see in several of the centers, it creates more health problems. Not only about COVID-19 transmission, but people become anxiety, people rush, they tend to force themselves. And it has economic impact. People spend more time that's supposed to be spent productively to be able to generate income. They spend it in trying to register. So we should think through. I mean, with this are age of technology. We should be able to use technology better to do what we are doing.
Okay, I mean, because seeing those pictures there, I mean, it's a lot of concern for Nigerians. But let's move on to the talk about vaccines, because I mean, it's been a major source of discussion in recent times in the polity. So the government says we're meant to get vaccines by the end of this month. Some experts say maybe that might not be possible, seeing the rush for vaccines. But more importantly, aside the whole talk about deployment, is acceptance. Okay, so yes, you can get all the vaccines you need, you can deploy them, but you will still need to give people. And I'm sure you've been following discussions on social media, off social media, what people think about vaccines. I mean, the governor of Kogi State, for example, saying, God forbid, there's something cynical about this. So for you first, what's your take on this?
Well, one, I'm a scientist, and I'm a trained scientist. And whatever I want to say should be based on science. And with due respect to digress, like what we are talking in America, the immediate past president was acting not based on science. And so also every leader must reason and act on science. As a scientist, I'm aware that no any kind of drug, including vaccines, will be approved for use for human without it going through the necessary scientific rigors. And definitely no scientist worth of his salt and no medical personnel worth of his salt will administer anything to human without it being certified that it is safe and will deliver the right efficacy. So having said that, a lot of things that are on social media are fake, and there are a lot of fake news going on. We're in the modern era where people can sit down and just manufacture anything. The second thing I want to say is that part of the fake news is that people escalate what ought not to be. There is no any drug in this world that don't have two kinds of reactions, which are abnormal. One may be what we call expected side effect, which will be detected in some people, which can be reported. The other one is what we call idiosyncrasy, which is an unexpected reaction to a drug. I recall when I was in medical school and so on, when we were being taught Panadol, we were told a Panadol, as common as it is, can kill immediately when it's at normal dose by some people. Who are these people? You may not know them. until when it happens, and that's unfortunate. And Panadol is found everywhere. Something you say, even the advertisement will say, take it for 3 days. When it didn't have effect, go to a doctor. But you may only take it once and die if you have what you call an idiosyncratic reaction. So now coming to vaccine. The vaccines that we have now, one, we must, first of all, scientifically, they are being approved for emergency use. And most of the vaccines, the fact is that it's not that we have had experience for a long time on them, unlike many vaccines. In which case, for them to be approved for emergency use, they have been tested, and there are some cautions, which are said. Because like the Pfizer, when it was approved, certain categories of people are saying, don't take it. Pregnant women, children under 16, if you have low, what we call, conditions that are immunosuppressed, and then if you have had a reaction to something like that before. They put all these conditions. It means there are no enough evidence as regards that. For other groups, they've given it to people. Every vaccines will go through 3 trials. They what to call the primary, secondary, and the 3rd trial. And except they pass this, even that emergency will not be approved. So for us in Nigeria, whatever vaccines that will be administered will be the one that our regulatory authority, regulatory bodies, which is NAFDAC, using our scientists, will satisfy that it's like that. So my opinion is that vaccines that have been proven to be safe and to be efficacious, that is to be able to work and prevent the disease, should be taken by people. Now, the challenge of people being against vaccines is not new. Blood, as it is, as useful as it is, which has been known for ages to save life, there are still people, there are religious groups that will say, no, don't give blood. And they will sign. So there's also that issue of choice of individual. But your choice as individual may have consequence for others. And that's why public health issue comes in, where if you don't, then it has a consequence on others.
So would you be looking at legislating, maybe to make this compulsory?
No. I think that also human rights, human choice will call me. We have to look at the public health component of that. But I think more of what we need to do is to do what we call social communications, to be able to, and that has been started by the, which is NPS, National Primary Healthcare Agency, to be able to provide information to people, to be open about it, to say the truth, and to say what is known and what is unknown. And then based on this, to be able to demonstrate to people that this thing works.
You know, the role of leaders, political leaders, government and all, in influencing people is also quite important. You referenced the former president of the United States and some of the things he said that affected the fight against COVID. So for you, because you're a leader in your constituency in the National Assembly, how are you planning to go about this? We've heard leaders say, well, I'm going to go in public and take the vaccine. Is that something you
Yes,
probably be
it's something
doing?
that we do. We've had this discussion with the National Primary Healthcare Agency. Not only me, the leadership of National Assembly, I'm aware, I'm the Senate President, Deputy Senate President, when we had interaction in December on these issues. And in fact, even the President of the country and some other leaders will do open and public acceptance of the vaccines once it comes. And we'll do this based on the fact that whatever vaccines that comes, the first vaccine that will be given to Nigeria will be certified by Nigerians, by Nigerian scientists, by Nigerian regulatory body. That is one. Two, there's one thing just I want to mention quickly. People even went into fake to say, oh, what is coming to Africa or so on will be special, it's different from what they are giving. Some people say it is plastic. This cannot happen. Currently, the vaccines that we use on our children, none of them is manufactured here. They are coming from Europe and America. As you get my point. I mean, we have vaccines that get BCG, DPT, oral polio, yellow fever, and so on.
I think some of them
and then when we are taking this, why if they want to do anything against us, they quote, why have they not used that? Why would they wait for, what do you call it?
COVID vaccine.
COVID vaccines. And of course, maybe some other people, let me just debunk. The only new thing in the COVID vaccine is the messenger RNA vaccines, which is one by Pfizer and the one by Moderna. But there are others, there are AstraZeneca, so which are the normal technology. But even this one, the research on them has started before COVID, based on MERS and other viruses that have happened. But what happened, it was fast-tracked because of the need. We can see that in this generation, the last 100 years, this is one of the pandemics we've had. The last pandemic, as reported, was in 1918. which was the influenza pandemic then. So, but 1918 and 2019, when this happened, technology, human knowledge, and so on has increased.
Well,
that is why.
Pardon me, because a lot of people reference some of those drugs and they say not for use in this certain country, and they say, oh, maybe that's why it's not for us, or at least it's meant to harm us because they're not meant to use it in those other countries.
Those ones, I'm sorry to say, that particular one, somebody sent it to me, and specifically I sent it to